All right, so today what we're going to do is assemble a Homestead side chair. And the first step is to find the work order. And here it is for this particular chair. It's a little bit different than what we typically do. Homestead is typically unpeeled aspen. This particular customer wants the peeled aspen look. So for everything that's log on this chair, we're going to do the peeled aspen finish. So I've got my parts all laid out. That's really the first step. After I take a look at my work order, and I'll show you, we'll just kind of go through the parts. Here's the back leg to the chair. Here's a finished chair over here. It's very similar to what we're going to be assembling today. It's not exact. Like I said, what we're going to do instead is we're going to put log spindles in the backrest instead of the timber slats. We're going to do a log stretcher down here instead of a 2.5 inch stretcher. Then we're also going to do a log or a live edge backrest rail on the top and on the bottom. So those are the three main differences. Otherwise, the chair is pretty similar. This chair actually does happen to be 2 inches taller in the back, so don't be confused by that. But just to show you, we're identifying parts. So this happens to be the left back leg. Then I've got the opposing right leg here. It's upside down. Let's get it right side up. Then we've got the front legs that are going to go like this and like this. And I've got the backrest. This will be the upper and the lower rails. And then the log spindles, as you can see, are going to fit between the lower and upper rails. Here are my stretcher rail, or my lower side rails, which are going to go here and here. And then we've got the upper side rails, which go from 2.5 inches to 2 inches because there's a slight slope or incline in our chair. The seat slopes to the back like so. So it's going to be like this. And we've got two other parts. These are the front and back rails. As you can see, we put an arch in them, just like so. The other one's going to be on the back side. And this is the log stretcher. Instead of this dimensional wood stretcher, we're going to put this cool log stretcher in here to kind of tie in with all the other log things that are on this chair. So now that we've identified our parts, the first step is to go ahead and to cleat our front and back rails. So I've got some 10-inch cleats here. I'm going to put a little bead of glue on them. And we're going to staple them to the inside of the rails. I've got 1.5 inch staples. I don't want to, like so. And we're going to go ahead and staple these to the inside of the rails here. I'm going to like to keep my finger flush with the top of the rail and with the end of the cleat. I've got to make sure that cleat stays below or flush with that rail. This cleat we're going to use to attach the chair seat to the chair base. And I'm eyeballing it from left to right for center. Don't need to be exactly precise about that. Just need a little space on both sides. Now we're going to take our lower side rails right here, pieces that go right here. And as you can see, we're going to drill, they've got little plugs in them. Well, we screw through this side rail into the stretcher to attach the stretcher to the base. So we need to countersink and pilot some holes. And we're going to do it like so. I've got a little jig here, marking jig, like so. Hangs up on the wall there. And I just flush it up. Go ahead and turn this on. I'm just going to wait till I hit the wood and then I'm going to stop. We'll go back and countersink this a little deeper. But I need to raise up my drill press table. Okay. Need to go deep enough so we can plug this hole. I don't want to go too deep because we don't have a lot of meat to work with. Okay, the lower side rails are ready. The next step is we're going to take the back leg and a front leg and attach the lower side rail and the upper side rail to the back and the front leg. So here's a back leg. And I need to take the corresponding front leg. I need to look and see how the mortises are. I need to make sure that they line up because, for example, if I have the incorrect leg, it's not going to match up. All the mortises need to be facing up and towards each other for it to work properly and at the appropriate height. So you can see this one won't work because that mortise is facing down, but this one does work because the mortise is facing up. So the next step is to go ahead and put a little glue in the mortises. And I'm going to use my glue brush to spread the glue around. You want to be careful. The cleaner job we do right now, the less mess we're going to have to clean up later. We want to put enough glue in there to do the job, but we don't want to put so much in there that we get a bunch of squeeze out where we have a mess to clean up. Okay. So that's ready. Now we're going to take our lower side rail. Now these piloted holes need to be facing down because right now we're looking at the inside of the chair. If you can imagine the rails coming this way. So those piloted holes are on the outside of the chair. So that rail is going to fit in that lower mortise. And we need to take, let's see here.
There it is, yep.
It's a little confusing at times to know what's square and what's not. This upper rail has a 2.5 inch tenon on one end and a 2 inch tenon on the other. And they were sanded on both sides, so it looks like these are probably interchangeable. In some cases that is not the case. So I'm going to slide my back leg into the rails, and then I'm going to take my mallet, just tap them as far as I can go with the mallet. I use my body to kind of brace, hold this jig in place. Okay, that's about as far as we're going. Then I'm going to put some clamps on it. This aspen wood is softwood. It's a good idea to have clamp pads just to make sure we don't leave big clamp marks. Okay, and I'm just watching, I'm clamping to make sure to see that shoulder of that tenon come up against the legs where it's nice and tight. Then I'm going to take a 1 1/4 inch square drive screw and I'm going to kind of toenail like a 45-degree angle. Drive that screw in. So remember, I'm working from the inside of the chair, so these screws won't be real visible. If you look for them, you can find them. But they're on the inside of the chair, so they're not real visible. Now, one thing I need to watch for is the height of this upper rail. I got to make sure that I'm not above the top of the front leg, and right there I am a little high. I'm going to take a hammer and see if I can tap that down. There we go. Now we're flush. That'll make a big difference when that seat is set on that chair base. Okay, now I can go ahead and loosen up my clamps. that's it for that side. We'll set him aside for now, but here he is. So there's one side of our chair right there. Now we'll do the opposite side. So he's going to go together the opposite way. The back leg is going to be on the near side. Yep. Lower side rail, upper side rail. We'll flip our legs up so we can go ahead and put glue in the mortises. And we're going to take our glue brush and spread the glue. This is a skill or a process you want to get down really well because it's kind of rare that we'll just do a single chair. Usually it's 4, 6, or 8. Today we do happen to be just doing one chair, but typically it's several at a time. Once again, this lower side rail, we've got our piloted and countersunk end facing down because we're looking at the inside of the chair. And I'm just going to start to snug it up, and I can see again the front of this rail is sitting a little high. So I'm going to see if I can tap it. There we go. We're flush. So I'll tighten that up and go ahead and drive our 1 1/4 screws. We're going to toenail them. I like to work the slow speed, just I feel like I have more control. These square drive screws are pretty aggressive threads because they just keep on going if you don't let your finger off the trigger. Helps if you're coordinated also. There we go. Okay. So here we go. Side number 2. It looks good. Now we're ready to put the entire chair together. I'm going to lay out each of the sides where the mortises are face up on the bench. And we're going to come over here and take a look at our backrest section. Here's our backrest section. I like to put the backrest section together next and just make sure that it fits in the opening and there's no issues before I do anything else. So we're going to go ahead and put glue in the holes and put this little section together. All right, just going to slip them in. And I'm going to bring them over to one of our sides and just kind of place it and sit it in place to see if it's going to line up. And it looks like it is. Looks like we're going to be okay. We're real close. I think it's worth it to go ahead and glue up the holes. Okay, this side. It's actually best to hold your side up at an angle because otherwise that glue is going to want to drip through the hole and make a mess on the bench, and then you're going to make a mess of your chair. You want to put enough glue to cover the entire walls and the floor of the mortise, but you don't want to mess either. So there's a fine line as to how much glue you want to add. Put this chair together. So I'm going to set my backrest section in place, and I'm going to see if I can give a little tap. Sit down a little bit, mortise. Okay. Now we've got a front rail and a back rail. Now I'm going to carefully lift this up and try to set it on top here. Okay. We're in, which is good. Now somehow I have to pick this up without it falling apart, which that is a little bit tricky. Yeah, it's already a little loose on me. Because what I'm going to do is try to clamp where all the rails are. I'll get it towards me. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and start putting clamps in place. I'm using the clamp pads because we're using a soft wood here. I'm going to go behind. Get one in behind to start. Just to kind of hold the chair in place. And I'm going to put one across the front. I turn them about 80%. The big goal right now is just to get everything to stay together. One on the front here. I'm going to start to snug it. My front rail is sitting a little high above my front leg, so we need to tap that, see if we can get that down. Okay, looks like we're okay. If we're ever sitting too high, what I would have to remedy, the remedy would be to take a notch out of the tenon to drop that rail down. But I think we're going to be okay. There, I want to watch, as I tighten up the clamps, I want to watch this rail and this leg come together and make a nice tight fit. So I'm going to add another clamp. Put another clamp right here. I want to stay clear of my countersunk and piloted holes that go into my backrest rails so I can access them, and that's how I'm going to screw this thing together. And I'm not going to go back and just snug everything up. I'm going to add a clamp here. I don't know if it's going to do anything, but I've got an extra clamp. I'm going to try. Ooh, I don't want to do too much. Okay, next step is to go ahead and put screws in the backrest rails. We're going to use a 3-inch square drive. Okay, we'll do the other side. Okay, that's good. Next step is we're going to take 1 1/4 screws, and the front and back rails, we need to secure them by toenailing them just as we did the side rails. And you're going at about a 45-degree angle to that corner. That way you go through the tenon and into the leg. Okay, so just double check, make sure everything looks good. Everything's tight, all the screws are in. Now I'm gonna take my clamps off. Okay, so the next step is to attach the log stretcher, which is gonna fit right in here. This thing's got a crack in it, so I'm going to roll that crack down because I don't love to see those cracks. Although structurally I don't see this as being an issue. It's not long enough to be a concern. And ideally I don't want my lug stretcher to sit above this top rail. Looks like it's about the same exact height. It's about 2.5 inches. I'll get your on the side. Okay, so that looks good. So now the next step is we've got to put in our seat supports. And these are our seat supports right here. The way they work, they're going to fit underneath the cleats, like so, and we're going to pocket screw them into the rails. It's going to reinforce the chair and strengthen it. I'm going to put an X where we need to put our pocket screws. Okay, now we'll go over to the pocket machine and cut our pockets. I'm going to put one in the end, two along the sides, and one in the opposite end. And I'm going to use a 1 1/4 screw, because anything longer would be too long and it would go through. Generally speaking, I like to use the longest screw I can that doesn't go through. It serves the purpose. And we like to push them up tight against the cleat and tight against the corner. That way it'll just strengthen the chair. So what we do is we finish the chair in the back, put the finish on, and then we take the seat back separately and finish that separately, and then we attach the seat to the chair after it's been finished. It's just easier to access everything prior to that seat being attached. Okay, there's one more step. We're going to go ahead and plug those screw holes. So I'm going to lay the chair on its side. This glue tip is way too big. In fact, we're going to find a better one. Generally, I don't approve of stealing, but we will return it. Put a dab of glue. So we purchased these little pre-made plugs. It's a 3/8 plug for a 3/8 countersink. And we're just going to carefully tap them in. We want to tap them in nice and straight. This hammer is way overkill for the size of this little plug. It still does the job. Flip it over to the other side. Makes a big difference to have a glue tip that's not so wide. You can control the amount of glue that comes out of the bottle a lot better. You know, I left a little ring on these. I'm going to go ahead and sand that ring off before I attach this plug. Now is the time to be looking over the chair to see if you see anything that you don't like before we send it to the back room. So you got to do it on all the way. It's all or nothing. Okay, we've got all our plugs in. And we're going to take a look at our chair, see if there's anything that we missed or that we see that we want to touch up. I think it looks pretty good. So there it is. There's our completed chair.